She saved his daughter, then healed the family he thought was beyond saving. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's dive into the story. But first, let's talk about the man who thought he had lost everything. Tommy. Tommy never imagined that the small, quiet house he had once shared with his wife and daughter would now echo only with memories of what was lost. His wife, Helen, had left 2 years ago. No explanations, no goodbyes, just a note that said she couldn't handle it anymore. And the real blow came when his little girl, Emily, was diagnosed with a rare and deadly disease that left them both on the edge of hope. Despite every treatment, every hospital visit, and every penny spent, Emily's condition only worsened. Tommy was running out of options, and with every passing day, he felt like he was drowning. He had once been a loving husband, a devoted father, but now, he was a man stuck in a nightmare, unable to pull himself out. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't escape the heavy weight of guilt and despair. His hands shook as he watched Emily sleep, her face pale and fragile, each breath she took like a countdown. She needed surgery, a complex procedure that could save her life, but it was far too expensive. Tommy didn't have the money, and even if he did, it seemed like too little, too late. And then, just when it seemed like all was lost, a phone call came in. It was from a hospital he had never heard of before, and on the other end was Dr. Anna Hayes, a renowned pediatric surgeon. She had heard about Emily's condition and wanted to help. Tommy was skeptical at first. He had seen so many doctors, heard so many promises. But something about Anna's voice, calm yet confident, made him listen. She didn't promise miracles, but she did promise she would try her best to save Emily. And in Tommy's desperate state, that was enough. He agreed to meet her the next day. Anna Hayes wasn't just any doctor. She had seen her fair share of heartbreak, too. Years ago, she had a family, a husband, a young daughter, and a life full of love. But one fateful day, a car accident took everything from her. Her daughter was gone. Her husband never recovered from the trauma, and Anna found herself alone, consumed by grief. She poured herself into her work, helping others because it was the only thing that kept her going. But deep down, she had given up on the idea of ever having a family again. When she heard about Emily's case, something stirred inside her. She saw a reflection of the child she had lost, and for the first time in years, Anna felt a flicker of hope. She didn't know why, but she felt compelled to help Tommy and his daughter. It wasn't just a professional decision, it was personal. The next morning, Anna arrived at Tommy's house. She wasn't expecting a warm welcome. Tommy was a man who had been hurt by life, who had lost all faith in anything but survival. But when he saw Anna, something in him softened. He had seen enough doctors to last a lifetime, but Anna was different. There was a calmness about her, an air of quiet strength that made him feel like maybe, just maybe, there was a chance. She immediately went to work, examining Emily, running tests, and speaking to Tommy about the options available. It wasn't easy, and Tommy fought her every step of the way. He was used to carrying the burden alone. He didn't want to depend on anyone, least of all someone who had no reason to care. But Anna was persistent. She listened to him vent about his pain, about the hopelessness that had consumed him. And slowly, very slowly, he began to trust her. Anna's calm presence began to chip away at Tommy's walls. She wasn't just there as a doctor. She was there as someone who understood pain, someone who knew what it felt like to lose everything. And in that shared understanding, something started to change. Tommy was still skeptical, still unsure, but he felt like maybe, just maybe, Anna was the person who could help him save his daughter. And as they stood there, two broken people who had never met before, a quiet bond began to form between them. A bond built not on promises of easy fixes, but on the quiet, powerful understanding that sometimes, all we need is someone to believe in us when we've lost all belief in ourselves. As the days passed, Tommy found himself growing more and more uncertain. Anna had begun to carve out a space in his life, not just as Emily's doctor, but as someone who seemed to genuinely care. The more he saw her, the more he noticed her quiet determination. She didn't say much about her past, But there were moments when Tommy caught a glimpse of the pain behind her eyes. Pain that seemed all too familiar to him. It was in those moments that he began to feel like she wasn't just treating Emily. She was fighting for her, just as he was fighting to keep his daughter alive. One evening, after a particularly grueling treatment session, Tommy sat by Emily's bed, staring out the window. The weight of the world seemed to press down on him. His heart was heavy with the uncertainty of what was to come. Anna had promised him that she would do everything she could to save Emily, but even she couldn't guarantee success. Tommy, the voice behind him made him jump. It was Anna, standing in the doorway with a look of concern on her face. I brought you some coffee. He didn't say anything. He just nodded, not knowing how to respond. Anna walked over and handed him the cup. She sat down beside him, the silence between them comfortable yet thick with unspoken words. She's strong, Tommy, Anna said, breaking the silence. I know it feels like it's all slipping away, but Emily has a will to fight. We all just need to give her the strength to keep going. Tommy glanced at her, surprised by the words. How can you be so sure? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. You don't know what it's like to feel like this, to watch your kids suffer and not be able to do anything about it. Anna looked at him, her expression soft but firm. I do know what it's like, she said quietly. I lost my daughter, remember? And every day, I feel that same pain. But that pain doesn't stop me from doing everything I can to save others. It's why I'm here. Tommy's breath caught in his throat as he turned to look at her, really look at her for the first time. He saw the truth in her eyes, the kind of truth that only comes from real suffering. And for the first time in a long while, Tommy felt a connection. It wasn't a romantic one. Not yet, anyway. But it was a bond, a shared understanding of what it meant to lose something precious. The next few days were a blur. Emily's condition continued to fluctuate, but something in the air seemed to shift. Tommy had been so focused on his own despair that he hadn't noticed how much Anna had become a part of their daily lives. She wasn't just a doctor anymore. She was a constant presence, offering guidance and support when Tommy felt like he was drowning. As they worked together, Anna gently pushed him to let go of some of his fears, to trust her and trust the process. You have to believe in her, Tommy, Anna told him one afternoon as they watched Emily rest. She needs to know that you're not giving up on her, that you're right here, fighting with her every step of the way. Tommy swallowed hard. It was easier said than done. How could he believe in something that seemed so out of reach? How could he let go of the fear that at any moment, Emily could slip away? But as he watched Anna with Emily, the way she gently brushed the hair from the little girl's face, he realized something. Anna wasn't just a doctor. She was healing Emily's soul, just as much as she was treating her body. And in doing so, she was healing Tommy as well. For the first time in what felt like forever, Tommy let his guard down. He started to open up, to talk more about his fears and his hopes. He spoke about Helen, about how everything had fallen apart after she left. He even shared a little about the guilt he carried, feeling like he had failed his family. Anna listened without judgment, offering only quiet support. You didn't fail them, Tommy, she said softly. You're doing everything you can. That's all anyone can ask for. Tommy didn't know how to respond to that. No one had ever told him that before, not in such a way that made him believe it. But Anna wasn't just telling him what he wanted to hear. She was speaking the truth, something that felt like a rare gift. The next day, Anna walked in with news that Tommy had been hoping for, but was still afraid to hear. Emily was responding to the treatment. Slowly, but surely, she was getting stronger. It wasn't a miracle, but it was hope. For the first time in weeks, Tommy allowed himself to breathe a little easier. There was a chance, a real chance, that his daughter could survive this. But the journey was far from over. And as he looked at Anna, standing beside him, offering him a quiet smile, he knew that whatever came next, they would face it together. As the weeks passed, Tommy began to notice something shifting inside him. For the first time in a long while, he was starting to believe in the possibility of a future for Emily and for himself. But just when things seemed to be looking up, the universe threw another curveball their way. One morning, after Anna had left for her rounds at the hospital, Tommy sat beside Emily, watching her sleep. She looked so peaceful, so vulnerable. He felt a surge of emotion, both fear and love. He couldn't bear the thought of losing her, not after everything they had been through. But deep down, he knew they weren't out of the woods yet. There was still a long road ahead. That afternoon, Anna came by for her usual visit. She entered the room with her usual calm demeanor, but Tommy noticed something was off. Her face was pale, her eyes tired. He could tell something was weighing heavily on her. "What's wrong, Anna?" Tommy asked, his voice laced with concern. Anna hesitated for a moment before sitting down beside him. She looked at Emily, then back at Tommy. It's not about Emily," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's about me." Tommy's heart skipped a beat. He had grown used to Anna's strength, her ability to stay composed under pressure. But now, for the first time, he saw the cracks in her armor. "What happened?" he asked, his brow furrowing with concern. Anna took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. "I've been running from my past for so long, Tommy," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "I thought I could just bury it, focus on my work, and it would all go away. But it doesn't. The pain, the guilt, it's always there." Tommy reached out and placed a hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to carry this alone," he said softly. Anna looked at him, her eyes full of gratitude. "I don't know how to let go of it, Tommy," she admitted. "I don't know how to stop being the person who's always in control, always pushing forward. I've lost so much, and I don't want to lose anything else." Tommy looked at her, seeing the woman in front of him not as a doctor, but as someone who had been carrying a burden of her own for far too long. "I get it," he said quietly. "I've been carrying guilt too. Ever since Helen left. I feel like I failed my family. I wasn't strong enough to keep it together." There was a long silence between them. Anna didn't say anything at first, but Tommy could see that his words had struck a chord. He didn't know what she was feeling, but he knew that the two of them were connected by something much deeper than just their shared struggle to save Emily. "We can't fix the past," Anna said finally, her voice calm but heavy. "But maybe we can start over. Maybe we can heal, together." Tommy didn't know how to respond. The thought of healing, of truly healing, felt foreign to him. He had spent so many years drowning in guilt and anger that the idea of letting go of those feelings seemed impossible. But looking at Anna, looking at the pain in her eyes and the quiet strength that still remained, Tommy realized something. He wasn't alone. They weren't alone. And maybe, just maybe, they could find a way to heal, one small step at a time. As the days went by, Anna's presence in their lives became even more profound. She didn't just visit as Emily's doctor anymore. She was a friend, a confidant. She became someone Tommy could talk to without fear of judgment, someone who understood the weight of what he was going through. Slowly, Tommy began to open up. He started sharing more about his past, about Helen, about the loneliness that had consumed him after she left. He talked about how he had built walls around his heart, unwilling to let anyone in. But Anna listened. She didn't offer solutions or easy answers. She just listened, and that was enough. One evening, as they sat together in the living room, Tommy turned to Anna with a sense of hesitation. Do you think we can really heal from all of this?" he asked, his voice low. Anna didn't answer right away. She just looked at him, her eyes filled with understanding. "I don't know, Tommy," she said softly. "But I do know this. Healing doesn't happen overnight. It's a journey. And sometimes, the first step is just letting yourself believe that it's possible." Tommy absorbed her words in silence. He wasn't sure if he was ready to believe it himself, but for the first time, he felt a glimmer of hope. Emily's condition had improved steadily, and Anna had become a constant in their lives. She was no longer just a doctor. She was part of their family in a way Tommy hadn't expected. The more time they spent together, the more Tommy realized that Anna had done more for him than just save his daughter. She had given him the courage to face his own demons, to confront the pain he had buried for so long. And in doing so, she had begun to heal him too. It was a slow process, but with each passing day, Tommy felt himself becoming a little bit stronger. And maybe, just maybe, the same was true for Anna. They weren't finished healing yet. But for the first time, Tommy wasn't afraid of the journey ahead. As the days went by, Tommy found himself drawn into a routine that was both foreign and comforting at the same time. Every day, Anna visited them, checking on Emily's progress, offering medical advice, but more importantly, offering something that Tommy hadn't realized he needed, emotional support. It wasn't just about saving Emily anymore. It was about healing the wounds inside himself, healing the unspoken distance between him and his daughter, and yes, even healing the broken parts of his heart that he had long since forgotten about. Anna had become more than just a doctor to him. She had become a lifeline, a person he never expected to need, but now, he couldn't imagine his life without her presence. It was during one of these quiet moments, sitting by Emily's side while she slept, that Tommy began to reflect on how far they had come. He remembered when he first met Anna, how cold and distant he had been, unwilling to trust her, unwilling to open up. And now, here they were, with Emily showing signs of recovery, and with Tommy finding the courage to face the past he had buried for so long. But with every bit of healing came a new challenge. Anna was no longer just helping Emily. She was helping Tommy confront his own demons, the ones he had hidden from even himself. The guilt over Helen's departure, the fear of being alone, the worry that he wasn't enough as a father. These were all the things Tommy had buried deep inside, refusing to acknowledge. But Anna had a way of gently pushing him, of making him confront those uncomfortable feelings. It wasn't easy. In fact, it was painful. But Tommy knew he had to face these things if he was ever going to move forward. He couldn't keep running from his past. One evening, as the sun set and the room filled with a soft orange glow, Tommy sat on the porch, watching the sky change. He had just finished talking to Anna about Emily's progress when something inside him snapped. He had been so focused on Emily's recovery that he had neglected to look inward. He hadn't taken the time to heal himself. He hadn't let go of the anger and resentment he carried. It wasn't just about Emily anymore. It was about him, too. Tommy took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the realization settle in. He had to stop pretending like everything was okay. He had to be honest with himself. He had to let go of the guilt and the fear. That night, as Anna came over for another visit, Tommy pulled her aside. "I've been thinking a lot," he said, his voice steady but filled with vulnerability. "I've been so focused on Emily, on her recovery, that I didn't realize how much I've been holding on to. I've been carrying around so much guilt. Over Helen, over everything. And I haven't let it go." Anna looked at him, her eyes soft with understanding. "Tommy," she said quietly, "healing isn't just about what happens to Emily. It's about all of us. We all have our battles. We all have things we need to let go of." Tommy nodded slowly, his chest tight. It was like something inside him had cracked open, and for the first time in years, he felt a little lighter. "I don't know how to let it go," he admitted. "I don't know how to forgive myself for everything that's happened, but I know I need to." Anna smiled gently, reaching out to place a hand on his. "It's not something that happens overnight," she said softly. "But you've already taken the first step. You're facing it. And that's more than most people can say." Tommy sat there for a moment, absorbing her words. There was still so much work to do, so much healing left to do. But for the first time, he felt like he was on the right path. It wasn't going to be easy. It wasn't going to happen quickly. But with Anna by his side, he felt like maybe, just maybe, he could begin to heal. The next day, as they sat together in the living room, Emily woke up with a small smile on her face. She was still weak, still frail, but the sparkle in her eyes was enough to bring tears to Tommy's eyes. He looked over at Anna, who was watching the moment unfold with quiet pride. "She's going to be okay, isn't she?" Tommy asked, his voice thick with emotion. Anna nodded, her smile gentle. "She's already on her way," she said softly. Tommy felt a lump form in his throat. He couldn't believe how much had changed in such a short time. Emily was getting better, but so was he. He wasn't sure if he could ever fully forgive himself for the mistakes of the past, but he was learning to live with them, to understand that healing was a process. It wasn't about forgetting the past. It was about moving forward, one step at a time. And with Anna beside him, he felt ready to take that first step. As the days turned into weeks, Tommy and Anna continued to grow closer. There was still so much unspoken between them, so many things they hadn't yet shared. But the bond between them was undeniable. And while the road to healing wasn't always smooth, Tommy knew that, together, they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. The days seemed to stretch on, but for the first time in what felt like forever, Tommy could feel a shift, a sense of hope that had been absent for so long. Emily's health continued to improve, and though the road to recovery was long, there was progress. Tommy found himself sitting beside her more often, holding her hand as she slept, feeling the warmth of her small fingers curl around his. It was in these quiet moments that he realized how much he had taken for granted, the simple joy of just being with her. Anna continued to visit daily, always checking on Emily's condition, offering her professional advice, but more than that, providing a source of strength for Tommy. She had become his anchor, the one person he could count on when everything seemed overwhelming. He hadn't expected it, hadn't expected her to become so important to him. But there she was, offering him something he hadn't realized he needed: peace. It wasn't just about Emily anymore. It wasn't just about the treatments and the hospital visits. It was about the two of them, Tommy and Anna, and the quiet connection that had formed between them over the past few weeks. Tommy wasn't sure when it happened, but somewhere along the way, he had stopped seeing Anna as just the doctor. She was no longer a stranger with a stethoscope. She was someone who understood him, who had fought her own battles, and who wasn't afraid to stand by him, even when it felt like everything was falling apart. That evening, after another long day of treatments and tests, Tommy found himself standing on the porch, staring out at the sunset. It was a beautiful sight, the sky painted in hues of pink and orange, but it didn't bring him the peace it once did. He was no longer looking at the world through the same lens. He had changed. He had changed because of the way Anna had made him see things differently. She had shown him that healing wasn't just about the physical, about the treatments, the surgeries, the progress. It was about the emotional journey, too. It was about confronting your past, facing the things you had buried deep inside, and allowing yourself to feel the pain so you could finally let it go. Anna's influence had been profound. Tommy had started to talk about things he had kept hidden for years: the guilt, the shame, the anger he had felt after Helen left. He realized now that he had been carrying all of that for so long, and it had weighed him down, kept him from truly being present for Emily. As much as he had tried to protect her from the pain of losing her mother, he hadn't been protecting her from the bigger pain, the emotional wounds that came from his own struggles. The phone rang, pulling him from his thoughts. It was Anna. "Tommy, I have some news," she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "Emily's test results came back better than we expected. Her recovery is progressing, and I think we're finally turning a corner." A wave of relief washed over him, but it was quickly followed by something else, a deep sense of gratitude. That's great news," Tommy replied, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you, Anna, for everything." Anna paused before responding. "Tommy, I need to tell you something else." Her voice grew softer, and Tommy could sense that this was something important. "What is it?" he asked, his heart rate quickening. "I think you need to hear this," Anna said gently. "You've done something that I never expected. You've opened up. You've let go of your anger, your guilt, and you've allowed yourself to heal. And I want you to know that your progress isn't just about Emily. It's about you too." Tommy didn't know how to respond. His emotions felt like a jumble inside him. He was overwhelmed by everything Anna had said, by how much she had seen in him, by how much she had been able to understand him without him having to say a word. "Anna," he said after a moment, "I don't know if I would have gotten here without you. I don't know if I would have been able to face all this, all the pain, the mistakes. I don't think I could have done it on my own." Anna's voice was soft, almost tender. "You're stronger than you realized, Tommy. But I'm glad I could be here with you. You're not alone in this." There was a long pause between them. Tommy felt something inside him shift, like a weight had been lifted off his shoulders. He wasn't alone anymore. He wasn't just a broken man trying to keep it all together. He had found strength in others, in Anna, in the love he had for Emily. And in turn, he was beginning to see that healing wasn't something that could be done in isolation. It wasn't about fighting alone. It was about leaning on others, sharing the load, and allowing yourself to trust again. "Thank you," Tommy finally said, his voice filled with sincerity. "I don't know what comes next, but I know that I'm not facing it alone. And I know that Emily's not alone either." "You're not alone, Tommy," Anna replied, her voice full of warmth. "We'll face it together." As he hung up the phone, Tommy stood there for a moment, letting the words sink in. He didn't know what the future held, but for the first time, he wasn't afraid. He was ready to face it. The journey wasn't over. There was still much to be done. But for the first time in a long time, Tommy felt hopeful. He had made it this far. And with Emily by his side, and Anna as his ally, he knew they could handle whatever came next. As the weeks went on, the air seemed to lighten. Tommy couldn't remember the last time he had felt this much peace. Emily's recovery had continued at a steady pace, and with every day, she grew stronger. It was no longer a fight for survival. It was a fight for a future, and for the first time in a long time, Tommy believed that future was possible. But there was something deeper that had begun to shift inside him. The emotional burden he had been carrying, the guilt, the regret, it was starting to loosen its grip. He felt lighter, freer. It wasn't that the pain had disappeared. It was still there, lurking beneath the surface. But Tommy was learning how to live with it, how to let it coexist without letting it control him. And a large part of that healing process had come from Anna. She had been the catalyst, the one who had shown him that it was okay to feel, that it was okay to be vulnerable. She had given him the space to open up, to face the pain he had buried for so long. And in doing so, she had helped him start to rebuild the pieces of himself that he thought were forever lost. One evening, as the sun began to set, Tommy found himself sitting on the porch again. This time, it wasn't the weight of despair that sat with him, but a sense of quiet contentment. Emily was inside, reading her favorite book, her voice a soft hum as she read out loud to herself. It was in this moment, watching her so peaceful, that Tommy realized just how far they had come. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was living. And Anna had been a big part of that transformation. Her impact on his life wasn't just limited to the medical care she provided Emily. It was the emotional support she had offered him, the way she had gently pushed him to confront his past, to face his fears. Anna had given him something he didn't even know he was missing, a sense of belonging. She had become more than just a doctor. She had become his ally, his confidant. And somewhere along the way, Tommy realized that what had started as a professional relationship had slowly shifted into something else, something deeper. He wasn't sure if it was the right time to acknowledge it, but there was a part of him that felt a pull toward Anna, something that went beyond gratitude and respect. He had grown to care for her in a way he hadn't expected, and as much as he tried to push the thought away, he couldn't ignore the connection that had developed between them. He wasn't sure if she felt the same way. Anna had always been reserved about her personal life, and Tommy hadn't pushed her to open up. But there were moments, fleeting moments, when he caught a glimpse of something in her eyes, something that told him she, too, felt the weight of their shared experiences. That night, after Emily had gone to bed, Tommy found himself standing in the kitchen, lost in thought. Anna had just left after a long day of tending to Emily. He had become used to her presence, her calm energy that seemed to fill the space around her. It was strange, really, how much her visits had become the highlight of his day. And yet, despite the closeness they had developed, there was still an unspoken tension hanging in the air. Tommy wasn't sure how to break it, how to bridge the gap between the gratitude he felt for her and the feelings that were starting to bloom in his heart. He walked into the living room, where Emily was asleep on the couch, her book still open beside her. He gazed at her for a moment, a warm smile crossing his face. She had come so far. She had fought so hard to stay with him, to survive. And now, she was here, alive, healthy, and full of life. For all the pain he had gone through, for all the loss and the guilt, there was this. There was Emily. There was the chance to make things right. And there was Anna, standing beside him through it all. The next day, Tommy made a decision. He wasn't going to wait any longer. He had to talk to Anna. He needed to find out if the connection they shared could become something more. He wasn't sure where it would lead, but for the first time in his life, he felt like he was ready to take a chance. That afternoon, Anna arrived for her visit, and Tommy wasted no time. After greeting her and checking in on Emily, he pulled her aside. "Anna, I need to talk to you about something," he said, his voice steady but with an undercurrent of emotion. Anna raised an eyebrow, her expression curious but calm. "What's on your mind, Tommy?" she asked, her tone gentle. "I've been thinking a lot about everything, the past few weeks, the progress Emily has made, and how much things have changed for all of us. And I've realized something," Tommy said, his eyes meeting hers. "I've realized that I don't just need you as a doctor, Anna. I need you as someone who's become a part of my life, a part of Emily's life. You've helped us heal in ways I can't even begin to explain. And I've come to care about you, more than I ever thought possible." Anna stood there, silent for a moment, her expression unreadable. Tommy's heart pounded in his chest. He had said it. He had finally opened up, admitted the feelings he had tried to suppress for so long. And now, all he could do was wait for her response. Anna took a slow breath before speaking. "Tommy," she said softly, "I've been feeling the same way. These past few weeks have been so much more than I expected. I came into this to help Emily, but somewhere along the way, I started to care about both of you. I care about you more than I thought I would. The weight that had been pressing on Tommy's chest for so long suddenly lifted. He could feel a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. Maybe this was just the beginning, but it was a beginning he was ready for. He had spent so long carrying his pain alone, but now, with Emily's recovery and the possibility of something more with Anna, he was finally ready to embrace the future. The journey wasn't over, but with Anna by his side, Tommy knew he could face whatever came next. The days following that conversation with Anna felt like a new chapter in Tommy's life. It wasn't just Emily's recovery that gave him hope, but also the unexpected turn in his relationship with Anna. He had confessed his feelings, and surprisingly, she had felt the same way. They had never talked about what that meant for them, but there was an unspoken understanding between them now, a connection that had shifted from doctor-patient to something deeper, something more meaningful. It was like the weight of the past, the isolation he had felt for so long, had been lifted. But as with every journey, it wasn't all smooth sailing. Tommy still had his doubts about whether he could truly heal, doubts about his ability to be a good father and a partner. Even though Emily was getting better, even though things with Anna were moving in a positive direction, the scars of his past still haunted him. One afternoon, as he sat by Emily's side, watching her play with her toys, Tommy found himself lost in thought. The sound of her laughter filled the room, but his mind was elsewhere, replaying the past in fragments. He thought about Helen, about how he had failed her, about the pain of losing her. He thought about the guilt he carried, the sense that he hadn't done enough, that he hadn't been enough. And even though Anna had told him that healing wasn't just about fixing the past, it still felt like something he needed to make peace with. He had spent so many years running from the truth, pretending that everything was fine, when inside, he was broken. That evening, when Anna came over for her usual visit, Tommy knew he had to talk to her. He couldn't keep carrying this burden alone. He needed to open up to her, to share the weight that had been building inside him. When Anna walked through the door, Tommy could see the familiar warmth in her eyes, the same understanding that had always been there. She smiled at him, but Tommy could tell she sensed something was different, something was on his mind. "Tommy, how's Emily today?" Anna asked, setting her bag down and walking over to check on Emily. "She's good, a little tired, but better," Tommy replied, his voice steady but with a hint of uncertainty. As Anna sat beside him, Tommy turned to face her. "There's something I've been thinking about, something I need to talk to you about," he said quietly, his voice tight. Anna looked at him, her gaze soft, waiting for him to continue. "It's about my past," Tommy began, taking a deep breath. "About Helen. About everything that happened before. I know you've told me to let go, that healing is about moving forward, but I can't seem to shake this feeling. This guilt that I wasn't enough. I wasn't enough for her, and I wasn't enough for Emily either. I've been carrying this burden for so long, and I don't know how to let it go." Anna didn't say anything at first. She simply looked at him, her expression filled with empathy. Tommy could feel his chest tighten, his throat constricting as he continued. "I keep asking myself, what if I had done something differently? What if I had fought harder for Helen, for our family? What if I had been a better husband, a better father? I can't help but feel like I failed." Anna reached out and placed a hand on his, her touch grounding him. "Tommy, you didn't fail," she said softly. "You did the best you could with what you had. And sometimes, the hardest part is learning to forgive yourself. But you have to let go of that guilt. It's not yours to carry anymore." Tommy closed his eyes, her words sinking in slowly. He had heard similar things before, but hearing them from Anna, from someone who truly understood his pain, made all the difference. "I don't know if I can," he admitted, his voice cracking slightly. "I don't know how to forgive myself." Anna squeezed his hand, her voice firm but kind. "You don't have to do it all at once, Tommy. Healing doesn't happen overnight. But you've already come so far. You've opened up, you've faced your fears, and you've been there for Emily when she needed you the most. You're not the same man you were before. You're stronger now, and you deserve to forgive yourself." Tommy sat in silence for a moment, feeling the weight of her words wash over him. He had been so focused on the idea of fixing everything, on the idea that he had to be perfect, that he hadn't realized the importance of simply accepting himself, flaws, mistakes, and all. For the first time, he felt a glimmer of peace. He wasn't perfect, and maybe he never would be, but that didn't mean he wasn't enough. It didn't mean he didn't deserve happiness, or the chance to move forward. Slowly, Tommy turned to Anna, his eyes meeting hers. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For everything. For being here. For helping me see that I don't have to carry all of this alone." Anna smiled softly, her eyes filled with warmth. "You don't have to, Tommy. You've never had to do it alone." As the evening wore on, Tommy and Anna sat together, quietly sharing the space. Emily, having fallen asleep earlier, was resting peacefully on the couch. For the first time in a long time, Tommy felt like he could breathe. The healing wasn't over, but it had begun. And with Anna by his side, he knew that whatever came next, they would face it together. As the weeks passed, Tommy found himself in a space he hadn't anticipated. The weight of his past, the guilt he had carried for so long, was starting to fade, replaced by a sense of hope and possibility. Emily's recovery continued at a steady pace, and with each passing day, the light in her eyes seemed to grow brighter. She was becoming more like her old self, playful and full of energy, her laughter once again filling the house. It was a sound Tommy hadn't realized he missed so much. He couldn't remember the last time he had felt this hopeful, this certain that the future held something better than what had come before. But with every positive change, there was still a part of him that struggled. The idea of forgiveness, especially self-forgiveness, was still foreign to him. As much as he wanted to let go of the mistakes of his past, there were still days when the guilt crept back in, when he questioned whether he was truly worthy of the happiness he was beginning to experience. But then there was Anna, steadfast, understanding, and always there when he needed her. Their relationship had shifted over time, from a professional connection to something much deeper. He had started to see Anna not just as the doctor who saved his daughter, but as someone who had become an essential part of his life. And in her presence, he found a kind of peace he hadn't known was possible. One evening, as he sat with Emily, watching her play with her dolls, Tommy found himself lost in thought again. He looked at her, at the little girl who had fought so hard to survive, and a wave of emotion washed over him. He had always tried to be strong for her, to be the rock she needed. But he knew that strength alone wouldn't be enough. He needed something more, something that would help him truly heal. And that something had come in the form of Anna. She had given him the courage to face his past, to stop running from his pain. She had taught him that healing wasn't just about fixing the broken parts of his life. It was about embracing them, about accepting that the past was a part of who he was, but it didn't have to define him. It was a lesson he had struggled to learn, but it was one he was finally beginning to understand. That night, after Emily had gone to bed, Tommy sat on the porch, watching the stars begin to twinkle in the night sky. Anna had just left, and he felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude toward her. He didn't know how to express it, how to thank her for everything she had done, for everything she had given him. But he knew one thing for sure. He couldn't keep living in the shadows of his past. It was time to take the next step. The next morning, as Anna arrived for her usual visit, Tommy decided it was time to open up again, this time about something he had been holding back. He had been hesitant for a while, unsure if it was the right time, but something inside him told him that he needed to say it now. After Emily had finished her breakfast, Tommy pulled Anna aside. "I've been thinking a lot about everything lately," he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "About the progress Emily has made, about how far we've both come, and about what you've done for me." Anna looked at him, her expression soft, waiting for him to continue. "I don't know if I ever told you this, but you've changed my life," Tommy said, his voice thick with sincerity. "You've shown me that it's okay to let go of the guilt, that it's okay to not be perfect. I've spent so long punishing myself for my mistakes, but you've helped me realize that I don't have to carry that weight anymore. And I don't know if I can ever thank you enough for that." Anna reached out and gently placed a hand on his arm, her touch warm and reassuring. "Tommy, you've done the hard part," she said softly. "You've taken the first step toward healing. And now, it's about continuing that journey, one day at a time." Tommy nodded, feeling a lump form in his throat. He wasn't sure how to respond, how to express the depth of his gratitude. But before he could speak, Anna added, "And as for me, I don't want you to thank me. I'm just doing what I know is right. You and Emily, you both deserve happiness. You've both been through so much, and I'm just glad I could be there for you." Tommy's eyes filled with tears, and for the first time in a long time, he didn't feel ashamed of them. He had been holding back for so long, trying to be strong, trying to keep it together. But now, in Anna's presence, he felt safe enough to let go, to feel everything that had been building up inside him. "I'm just so grateful," he said quietly. "For you. For everything." Anna smiled, her eyes filled with warmth. "And you should be, Tommy. Because you're worth it. You've always been worth it." As the days turned into weeks, Tommy continued to walk the path of healing, slowly letting go of the guilt and the fear that had held him back for so long. Emily's recovery continued, and with Anna's support, Tommy felt like he could finally start to live the life he had once thought was out of reach. The road ahead wasn't always easy, but Tommy knew that as long as they faced it together, there was nothing they couldn't overcome. He wasn't the same man he had been when he first met Anna, and for the first time, he felt like he was finally on the right path. The journey wasn't over, but Tommy was ready for whatever came next, with Anna by his side and Emily in his arms. The future was bright, and it was theirs to claim. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, Tommy began to understand something he had never fully grasped before. Healing wasn't a destination, but a journey. It wasn't about fixing everything overnight, but about taking each day as it came, moving forward little by little. Emily continued to thrive. Her laughter, once a rare sound, now filled the house every morning, a bright melody that Tommy had longed for. She was playing outside more, chasing after her dog, and running in circles, her joy contagious. And for the first time in ages, Tommy truly enjoyed being a father. He no longer saw himself as a man weighed down by guilt and regret. He saw himself as someone who was capable of love, of growth, and of healing. And a large part of that was thanks to Anna. She had shown him that life didn't have to be perfect to be meaningful. She had taught him that his past didn't define him, and that the mistakes he had made were just that, mistakes. They didn't have to carry him forever. Anna had become more than just the doctor who saved Emily. She had become his partner, his confidant, and someone he cared for deeply. It was a connection that neither of them had anticipated, but it was undeniable. Every moment they spent together seemed to deepen their bond. They didn't need to say much to understand each other. They both had scars, but they were healing together, one step at a time. One evening, as they sat outside on the porch watching the sun set, Tommy turned to Anna, his heart full. "I never imagined I'd get here," he said softly. "I never imagined I could be this happy again, or that I could let go of everything I've been holding on to." Anna smiled at him, her eyes warm with understanding. "You got here, Tommy," she said gently. "You did the hard work. And you've got so much more ahead of you. So much more to look forward to." He reached for her hand, holding it in his. For the first time, he didn't feel the need to be perfect. He didn't need to prove anything to anyone. He had come to realize that love, acceptance, and patience were the things that truly mattered. The past no longer had the same hold over him. He was no longer defined by it. And as long as he had Anna by his side and Emily in his life, he knew he could face anything. "Thank you," Tommy said, his voice full of emotion. "For everything. You saved Emily, but you also saved me." Anna squeezed his hand, her gaze steady. "You saved yourself, Tommy," she said softly. "You've always had the strength inside you. I just helped you see it." As they sat there, surrounded by the quiet evening, Tommy realized that this was only the beginning. He wasn't the same man he had been when he first met Anna, and neither was Emily. They had all grown, together. And though the road ahead wasn't always easy, Tommy knew that as long as they faced it together, nothing could stop them. He had his family. He had love. And he had hope. The future was bright, and for the first time, Tommy felt ready to embrace it. Together, they would build a life full of second chances, of forgiveness, and of happiness. Whatever came next, they were ready. Tommy, Anna, and Emily, they were ready to face it together.